B. There was an issue that was much talked about, which is a Plan B for Syria. In fact, it was mentioned by the Secretary of State himself. What does that involve? Does that involve breaking up the country? Does it involve holding it in some sort of a federal entity, much like Iraq? How do you envision this Plan B in the event that things break down again?
Well, there's been no final decisions with respect to a quote-unquote Plan B. There are ongoing interagency discussions about what proper alternatives and options might be pursued should this political process not succeed. Obviously, we want it to succeed. Right. And the early reports over the weekend of the cessation of hostility are encouraging. No question about that. And I think you heard UN Special Envoy de Mistura talk about the resumption of the political talks early in March. I think the day he put out there was March 7th as a target. So that's good. That's what we want to see. We want to see Plan A succeed. Okay, but it would be irresponsible and certainly not prudent if the interagency here in the United States wasn't also thinking about appropriate alternatives. And I won't get ahead of any decisions that haven't been made yet. Certainly. I'm sorry. There was another part of your question though.
But the Secretary mentioned Plan B in two separate hearings on two separate days. So, leaving the impression that there's something more concrete than just interagency discussions. Did he intend to do that?
Yeah. He talked about the fact that the interagency is having active discussions about alternatives and options, the so-called Plan B. But no final decisions have been made about that. But there was another aspect to your question I'm forgetting.
Actually, the Secretary himself mentioned that, is it some sort of a confederacy? Is that for the plan?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. You asked about partition. I do want to get back to that point.
Yeah.
What he said was, that's a fear. That's not a Plan B.
Okay.
The fear would be that if we don't, the international community doesn't continue to push for this political process through Vienna, that might be the result. But it's a fear. It's not a Plan B. And it says right there in the Geneva and the two Vienna communiques that what we want here is a unified, whole, non-sectarian Syria. That's still the goal. A whole unified Syria that the Syrian people can call home and can return back to, and that can be led by a government that they have had a voice in creating and that is responsible and responsive to their needs.
Does that include maintaining the infrastructure of the Syrian government, given the U.S.'s goal of having someone replace Bashar al-Assad down the road?
Yeah, the Secretary's talked about this numerous times. Clearly, as you work through the political process here, we want to preserve the appropriate amount of infrastructure and institutions, governing institutions, so that you don't end up with chaos and a complete fall of some sort of governance. Now, how you do that, again, we're not there yet, and there's a lot of discussion that's going to have to go on. But even the Secretary has alluded to the fact that some measure of the Syrian security forces are going to have to be preserved. We've seen what it's like in the past when that's not done, and what that does to a country. So there's a lot of work that has to be done on that. The short answer to your question is yes, some infrastructure and institutions are going to have to be preserved in some form going forward.
Yeah, stepping back just